Welcome to another IBS empowerment event. So the topic for today is artificial intelligence. So I'm sure that you will agree with me that this topic has definitely captivated the minds of scientists, innovators, and thinkers for some time, but it has gone to a new level over the last year on the media, in the workplaces, and just with many persons in the society. And, as I reflect over the last couple of years, well, if you look at even the last 30, I won't tell you my age, but I'll say, let's say 30 years, but we've seen a lot of technology developments that have significantly impacted the society. And I'm in the technology field, so I'm really aware of this, and I'm sure you feel it. Even just with the internet over the last several years, if you can believe that it's just over the last several years that this has been something that the society has been using, and the way that it has transformed the way we communicate, access information, and conduct business. When we look at the mobile technology, the proliferation of mobile devices such as a smartphone, and the impact that it has had in terms of connecting and transforming industries like e-commerce, social media, and even just, we know all the discussion about social media, such as Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and just the way that people now share information and engage with each other, and both positive and negative influences politically, socially, in all kind of areas. So definitely in this age, we know that technology is advancing rapidly. And artificial intelligence stands as one of the most significant and transformative developments at this time. So before we dive into the topic, I just want to take a pause to talk a little bit about IBS, because this is an IBS empowerment event. And I just want you to know why we put these sessions on. What do we here, at IBS have to do with, topics such as this? So international IBS really stands for the International Bible Study, and it's a Christian ministry. And the aim is to mature Christians. And we do this in several ways: through Bible studies with trained teachers of the word, where we have on the second, fourth, and fifth Sunday evening, we have a Bible study. And then we do it through prayer. We believe that we are watchmen and women on the wall of our cities. So we meet monthly to pray for our nations and matters impacting the nations and our families and communities. We also encourage and inspire through our WhatsApp group. And we all believe that as Christians, we also need to be giving, and we have an annual charity outreach to provide Bibles and help address needs in our communities. So we help Malawi with Bibles and changing it into the Malawian language. And we also help to provide medical supplies to hospitals, and so several things that we as a group have embarked on. And then the final area is empowerment, which is what we're doing now, transforming and building awareness about current events that help educate and empower us, so that our impact can be more significant and based on knowledge. In terms of the format for this event, we will first have the presentation, and then we'll move into question and answers. And we ask that you can also put your questions in the chat if you wish, but we will have verbal discussion at the end. So we'll give you time for that. So everyone, as we navigate this remarkable era of artificial intelligence, it is crucial to approach its development and deployment with careful considerations. We are especially honored today to have as our speaker, Dr. Joseph Porter Jr. I will ask Blair if he can introduce our speaker. Go ahead, Blair.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Just give me a second, Ruth. I've been all over the place. Good morning to all IBS members and guests. Glad that you could join us for this important message on artificial intelligence this morning. I'd like to thank Joe Porter for coming today and sharing his knowledge on this important topic. Before we start, I'd just like to share a little bit about Joe's credentials. Dr. Joseph Porter Jr. lives in New York, USA, and we are pleased. He is also a member of the IBS family. Dr. Porter is the director of the Global Business Leadership graduate program in the School of Business and Leadership at Nazareth University in New York, where he's also a professor. He is also founder and president of Porter Consulting Services, PCS. Dr. Porter had a successful career at IBM in leadership and management roles for over 25 years. He was involved in numerous large global initiatives and also managed several major research projects for IBM. He has spoken at multiple worldwide conferences on technical subjects, including conferences at IBM, at Cornell University, in Saudi Arabia. Dr. Porter has a doctorate in computing from Pace University. He has a Master of Professional Studies from Cornell University, Master of Science in Engineering from Wharton Business School and Penn Engineering, and a BA and MBA from State University of New York at Binghamton. We are very honored to have Dr. Porter, who, as we can see, is extremely qualified to speak on this subject. We'd just like to thank you. And you can take it over now.
Okay. Dr. Porter, we'll just, let's just spotlight to replace you. Thanks a lot. Over to you.
Okay, good morning. It is an honor and privilege to talk to all of you this morning about artificial intelligence. As a high level, what we're going to look at is we're going to define a couple of terms that we see in social media. We're going to also talk a little bit about the positive aspects of AI and some challenges associated with AI. I will get to the agenda briefly, but before I do that, I want to kind of get you thinking a little bit about the enormous power that the computer has. So before you can count or say 1,000, right, in 1 second, the computer is capable of processing 1 billion instructions, right? So when you're looking at ChatGPT and you put in your question and you wait for that minute to come back, literally behind the scenes, the computer is processing thousands, millions of searches or whatever needs to be done before it comes back and paints on your screen the results of that. So I'm mentioning all this to give you a sense of the immense power that the computer has. And just to further the point, every 60 seconds, about 48 hours of YouTube videos are posted online. Within that same amount of time, there must be like 200 emails, 500 million posts on Facebook. So there's literally 1 petabyte of data every second. So for those of you who may not know what a petabyte is, you know what a gigabyte is because you have that on your phone. So a petabyte is 1 million gigabytes every second. I say this to let you know that there's a lot of data that's out there, and that applications like AI and other applications allow us to sift through all of this information and help us understand patterns, trends, things like that, so we humans could make sense of it all. So with that as a backdrop, I'll come back to this processing power later in the presentation, but I'm going to go on now to the agenda. So I've talked a little bit about it. We're going to define some terms, look at the big picture of AI, why it's important. So I want to try to be as
Dr. Porter, you're not sharing your screen.
Oh, I'm not. Ooh. Sorry about that. Just a second. How about now? Can you see it?
Yes, you can make it.
All right. So thank you so much, Ruth, for pointing that out. And just want to go down here and go to full screen. Sorry about that. Thank you so much for helping me out there. So I was just showing the cover page previously, which was this while I was talking. So you don't need to worry about that anymore. And I'm just going to minimize this. All right. So hopefully you can see the agenda here.
Yes.
So I want to talk a little bit. I'm going to define what is intelligence, what is artificial intelligence. I'm going to show a picture that kind of shows how AI has a lot of pieces underneath it, like machine learning, some other things like that. And I want you to hear from experts like Bill Gates and others to talk about why AI is important. Then I want to show a little bit of the evolution of AI, and we're going to get into these buzzwords that you see on social media, like large language models, generative AI, and things like that. And then I want to use a credible source like PBS, Public Broadcasting System, and show you some extracts of a 2-hour PBS special that was done. I want to just take a couple of 2-minute clips and show them to you regarding things that are going on in China, how AI is being used to treat breast cancer in Massachusetts. Then I'm going to talk specifically about a couple of examples that I want to use in healthcare, finance, and other things. And then finally, we're going to talk about the not so great part of AI, the impacts on jobs, how automation is affecting towns like Saginaw, Michigan, and others. Then finally, we're going to talk about regulations around AI and other technology. And before we get into what's next, or things that you might want to consider as we go into the future. So if I go on to the next slide here. So starting out with a definition of intelligence, right? So an objective source here would be the dictionary, right? So if we go to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, it talks about intelligence being the ability to learn or understand or to deal with new or trying situations, the skill, use, of reasoning, right? The ability to apply knowledge in abstract ways like tests and things like that. So that's a dictionary definition. If we were to look at a technology person's definition, Louis Rosenberg here, he's going to talk about intelligence in a slightly different way. A thing to note here, though, is that the creator has made us with brains, right, that are very sophisticated. And some of the best technology tries to mimic the human body. And Lewis talks about our brain, and within our brain, we have these things called neurons. Every human being, you and me, has at least 85 billion neurons in our brains, right? And these neurons are connected to other things, other connections. So in all, we have something like 1 trillion connections in our brain. Now, this is important because the more connections you have, the more awareness of things you have, and that awareness can turn into, this intelligence that we're talking about. And this is the kind of thing that's scaring a lot of people when they talk about computers taking over, because as companies like Facebook and Google and others are creating these artificial neurons, the things that are in our brain, at some point, there's a belief that we're going to create so many billions of these neurons that the computer is going to become self-aware. We'll talk about that later. There's some people who disagree on that. But Louis Rosenberg talks about this, and I would like to play briefly just a 1 minute, just less than 2 minute clip of Louis Rosenberg, right, and what he's saying. Okay, just a second.
Wow, there's a lot of smart people in this room. Really smart. After all, every single one of you has about 85 billion neurons in your heads. And every one of those neurons is connected to thousands of others, which means there's over 100 trillion connections inside every human brain. It's the system formed by these interconnected neurons that make you who you are. Not just your intelligence, your personality, your creativity, your values and morals. Every one of us is a complex system of neurons. It's remarkable. After all, we humans are pretty damn smart. We've created art, science, literature.
So that's Lewis talking about these neurons that I just referred to. So between the dictionary and Lewis' definition of intelligence and, the brain that we have and the neurons that are within our brain, we have a view of what intelligence is, at least from 2 sources, right? So if we were to go on now to talk about artificial intelligence, I'm using this book by a definition from a book from Brennan Davis. He talks about, he writes about business analytics, But he basically says that AI is this area of computer science that emphasizes the creation of intelligent machines that work and react like humans. So you can broadly categorize these into two categories, like applied or more common AI, or applications like Netflix or Spotify or self-driving cars. They can do one thing very, very well. You can drive a car very, very well using GPS and things like that. General or more common AI, it handles multiple things, and also the AI is involved with decision making, like virtual assistants like Alexa or Google Home, right? So that's just some backdrop definition information. And this Chat GPT that I referred to before, chat is in front of the name, but a GPT is just a generative pre-trained transformer. The computer or the machine has to be pre-trained, right? So this is a family of these neural network models. We talked about neural networks just a little bit, so you have a feel for what they are now. So we've gone through a dictionary definition of intelligence, and we've seen some scientific definitions of artificial intelligence. And this graph is a little busy, but the main thing here is in the middle. All right, I borrowed this from the Seidenberg School of Computer Science. And off here to the right, this circle talks about artificial intelligence, including things like machine learning or deep learning. It also touches in this circle big data, data science, and data mining, right? So a quick idea of what these are. If we talk about machine learning, machines can learn through lots of different ways. Supervised machine learning is when the person or the human helps it a little bit. So if you're looking at classification, if you wanted to try to find out whether a butterfly, what type of butterfly is it, or what type of moth it is, whether it's a lunar moth or an emperor moth, you look at the body size, the wingspan, and things like that, and you can classify it. When it comes to regression and machine learning, the machine can look at tens of years of data and try to predict through statistical regression whether or not, if you're looking at spending on Adidas sneakers, for example, every dollar that you spent on Instagram or Facebook or TV advertisement, how much did I get back? So that's sort of what you can do with regression analysis and this supervised learning. Under unsupervised learning is where you see more of the neural networks. The computer is learning and the computer is doing things itself. You just tell it what you want and it does it. So if you are looking at women between the ages of, or young ladies between the ages of 8 and 60, you can ask the computer to group these young ladies into groups of 3 that may show you correlations between, are they spending as they get older, or income groups and things like that. But so this is sort of, AI touches a lot of different things, and that's the main point that I want to get across here. And these neural networks down near the bottom, this is an example of a neural network. They're looking at pictures in a crowd, trying to identify a person by having these multiple pieces of computer code, look to see the eyes. It's mastered what a particular person's eyes may look like, the distance between the eyes, the mouth, and so forth. So at the end, it tries to identify the person. Another way to think of these neural networks is if you want to go to a movie or if you want to try to predict whether or not someone like Blair, who introduced me earlier, is going to go to the movies, maybe the price of the ticket might be important, the weather, if he's married, whether or not he can get a babysitter for his children. So, let's just follow that a little bit. If the ticket prices, I'm going to exaggerate to make my point, but the ticket prices are like $2,000, the probability of him going to the movies are probably smaller. If you look down here, you're going to try to look at weights here, the probability as you go through all of these. If you can't get a babysitter, probably not. And if it's snow, blizzard outside, probably not going to go. But if you change these a little bit and say, if sunny out, the price is free, he can get there with no problem, then there's a good chance that he might go. So big data, we talked about that earlier, all the data that's going on, 300 emails per second. And data science, big data, data mining. With data mining, you can look at something like Google Analytics and see who's on your website, what time of day, how what they're doing on your website and things like that, but you can mine the data and try to find information that would be helpful to you. So this is a big picture view. There's someone trying to get in, say something?
Nope.
Sorry. All right, so the main thing here is AI is a lot of things. It touches a lot of areas, not just ChatGPT. Moving on here. So why is AI important, right? So I want to give you 3 views on that. One is going to come from people like Bill Gates, Sundar Pichai, who's in charge of Google. Barack Obama even weighs in, right? Then the other thing I want to talk a little bit about is this OpenAI, which is ChatGPT. They're the ones who came out with that. They are, even though it says open, Microsoft has invested $13 billion in them so far since 2019. So even though they're open, they kind of favor the Microsoft products a little bit, like Bing in their browser. Then finally, from a strategic point of view, I want to show you a little bit of video clip on what the president of China, Xi Jinping, is saying about their strategy towards AI. So let me go back up to the top and play a quick video for you regarding what the folks are saying when it comes to, I think I have a video here. Just a second. Trying to find that. And as luck would have it, I probably don't have that right in front of me, but you know what? I may have to just launch this from my browser. Let's do that.
Google, Facebook, Apple, Microsoft are all moving ahead at a great speed in improving this artificial intelligence software. So it's very exciting. Software is going to solve that, where it'll look at all the new information and present to you, knowing about your interests, what would be most valuable. So making us more efficient.
We're focusing on what we've talked about on autonomous systems. And we sort of see it as the mother of all AI projects. So autonomy is something that's incredibly exciting for us. We'll see where it takes us.
Wouldn't it be wonderful if someday we got to the point where there were robots every place, they were running farms, they were running Apple, they were running Berkshire Hathaway, and all you had to do was one person could punch a button at the start of every morning, and all the goods and services that we're getting now would be turned out by robot.
It is seeping into our lives in all sorts of ways that we just don't notice. We're just getting better and better at it, and we're seeing that happen in every aspect of our lives, from medicine to transportation to how electricity is distributed. And it promises to create a vastly more productive and efficient economy. And if properly harnessed, can generate enormous prosperity for people, opportunity for people, can cure diseases that we haven't seen before, can make us safer because it eliminates inherent human error in a lot of work.
Artificial intelligence is going to be extremely helpful, and the risk that it gets super smart, that's way out in the future, and probably we're talking about. But now what we're seeing is that for the first time, computers can see as well as humans. That's pretty incredible.
NHTSA did a study on Tesla's Autopilot version 1, which was relatively primitive, and found that it was a 45% reduction in highway accidents. And that's despite Autopilot 1 being just version 1. Version 2, I think, will be at least 2 or 3 times better. That's the current version that's running right now. So the rate of improvement is really dramatic, but we have to figure out some way to ensure that the advent of digital superintelligence is one which is symbiotic with humanity.
AI is probably the most important thing humanity has ever worked on. Now, I think of it as something more profound than electricity or fire. And anytime you work with technology, you need to learn to harness the benefits and while minimizing the downsides. You know, stepping back, when you think about, you know, a lot of problems in the world today, it's because we typically have a constraint on resources. AI, for the first time, I think over time, offers a different construct. Things which are constrained and look like a zero-sum game today may not be so in the future. Take education, for example. It's really difficult to educate people in a cost-effective way. AI may fundamentally change that equation. It may make it possible for us to have clean, cheap, renewable energy for the future. So I think a lot of things will play out in more positive ways than people think.
I think probably by end of next year, self-driving will encompass essentially all modes of driving and be at least 100 to 200% safer than a person by the end of next year. Talking maybe 18 months from now.
The idea that there's going to be a general AI overlord that subjugates us or kills us all, I think is not something to worry about. I think that is overhyped. First of all, we don't know, we're nowhere close to knowing how to build a general AI, something that could set its own objectives. But second of all, I think it's unlikely that such a thing's first instincts would be to exterminate us. So I'm optimistic about that one, and certainly don't think we need to worry about it today.
Okay, so we've heard from some of the tech experts about why AI is important. I talked a little bit about open AI. The next point I want to make is from a strategy point of view. President Xi in China is saying that by 2025, China is going to catch up with the US, and by 2030, China is going to lead the world in AI. So I want to play a short video clip of President Xi's comments.
Chinese government, the Chinese government kind of woke up. As we often say in China, the beginning is the most difficult part.
In 2017, Xi Jinping announced the government's bold new plans to an audience of foreign diplomats. China would catch up with the US in artificial intelligence by 2025 and lead the world by 2030.
An intensified cooperation in frontier areas such as digital economy, artificial intelligence, nanotechnology, and quantum computing.
Today, China leads the world in e-commerce. Drones delivered to rural villages. A society that bypassed credit cards now shops in stores without cashiers, where the currency is facial recognition.
No country has ever moved that fast. And in the short 2.5 years, China's AI implementation really went from minimal amounts to probably about 17 or 18 unicorns, that is billion-dollar companies in AI today. And that progress is hard to believe.
The progress was powered by a new generation of ambitious young techs pouring out of Chinese universities, competing with each other for new ideas, and financed by a new cadre of Chinese venture capitalists. This is Sinovation, created by US-educated AI scientist and businessman Kai-Fu Lee.
Well, these unicorns, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in the general AI area. And unicorn means $1 billion company, a company whose valuation or market capitalization is at $1 billion or higher.
So that's Kai-Fu Lee. He worked at Apple, Google, and other places before. But you can see how China is, what I would say, playing to win, right, when it comes to AI. They're really heavily subsidizing some of the work that the companies in China are doing. We'll come back to that point a little bit later. I want to quickly go through the evolution or some major pivot points in history when it comes to artificial intelligence. So this artificial intelligence term has been around since the 1956. At an Ivy League, one of the 8 Ivy League companies or colleges, Dartmouth University up in New Hampshire, they coined the phrase AI back in 1956. Another pivotal moment was IBM Deep Blue beating chess champion Garry Kasparov in 97. IBM Watson on Jeopardy. I don't know if you guys like Jeopardy. It's one of my favorite shows, but when it beat Ken Jennings and Brad Rutter, it was phenomenal. You can look at the scores here. These guys had about 20,000 and Watson had 77,000. And then in 2016, 5 years later, AlphaGo, a product from Google, right, actually beat Lee Sedol in a game of Go. They say the game of Go is so complex. It has there's more moves in the game of Go than there are atoms in the universe. Let me just play again a brief video about Lee Sedol playing in AlphaGo. These are important milestone moments.
They were sure that Lee Sedol would beat AlphaGo hands down.
Google's AlphaGo was a computer program that, starting with the rules of Go and a database of historical games, had been designed to teach itself.
I was one of the commentators at the Lee Sedol games. And yes, it was watched by tens of millions of people.
Throughout Southeast Asia, this was seen as a sports spectacle with national pride at stake. But much more was in play. This was the public unveiling of a form of artificial intelligence called deep learning that mimics the neural networks of the human brain.
So what happens with machine learning and artificial intelligence, initially with AlphaGo, is that the machine is fed all kinds of Go games. And then it studies them, learns from them, and figures out its own moves. And because it's an AI system, it's not just following instructions, it's figuring out its own instructions. It comes up with moves that humans hadn't thought of before. So it studies games that humans have played, it knows the rules, and then it comes up with creative moves.
That's a very surprising move.
I thought it was a mistake.
Game 2, move 37.
That move 37 was a move that humans could not fathom, but yet it ended up being brilliant and woke people up to say, wow, after thousands of years of playing, we never thought about making a move like that.
Oh, he resigned. It looks like Lee Sedol was just resigned, actually.
Yeah.
In the end, the scientists watched their algorithms win 4 of the games. Lee Sedol took 1.
What happened with Go, first and foremost, was a huge victory for DeepMind and for AI, right? It wasn't that the computers beat the humans. It was that, one type of intelligence beat another.
Artificial intelligence had proven it could marshal a vast amount of data beyond anything any human could handle and use it to teach itself how to predict an outcome. The commercial implications were enormous.
While AlphaGo is a toy game, but its success and its waking everyone up, I think, is going to be remembered as the pivotal moment where AI became mature and everybody jumped on the bandwagon.
This is about the consequences of that defeat.
So that's Lee Sedol, world champion Go player, being beat by a computer, AlphaGo, right? So the computer has access to huge amounts of information, and it can process it very fast. So that's a little bit about the evolution or big pivotal moments that we've seen in AI. I want to quickly address some of the buzzwords that we are hearing now, and when it comes to large language models, Large language models are these machine learning models that are capable of this natural language processing, or NLP as they call it. So these models are trained on huge amounts of data. And specifically, since all of you have been hearing about ChatGPT, so we're at ChatGPT 4 right now. But if I were to, I know this is a busy chart, but the key points here are, if you look at these small language, large language models, the ones who are able to handle less than 100 billion parameters or input, you can see ChatGPT started way back here as an application that was able to handle less than 100 billion, right? The ChatGPT 1, you can see ChatGPT 2 over here, it kept going. ChatGPT 3 jumped over to these circles, or these ovals are keep getting bigger because the number of inputs, as they get larger and larger, and these bigger ones here are able to handle more than 100 billion inputs, right? So this is what the large language models are doing. So just to talk about those a little bit. Generative AI is another buzzword. So it is a technology that allows machines to create content on their own based on inputs that you give it. It uses these algorithms and these patterns from this large data set, and it allows you to generate new content that is similar to the input that it put in. So a quick difference between generative AI and large language models. You can see that generative AI emphasizes the content creating function of these systems. It's relatively intuitive in terms of that it covers a large range of types of AI that have progressed in recent years. And these large language models are types of AI systems that work with language. We're just dealing with language. Remember, that picture of AI deals with a lot of different pieces. So at this point, again, to try to take my bias out of this, I want you to look back again at short clips from PBS. You heard Xi Jinping, the president of China, say that by 2030, they want to catch up with the US, and by 2025, they want to catch up with the US, and they want to lead the world in 2030, right? So some short extracts from this 2-hour PBS special. If anybody wants it, I'll put it in the chat later. It's 2 hours. I'm just taking 1 or 2 minute extracts from that to show you certain things. So the 3 things I want to show you is what these young CEOs in China are doing with self-driving cars, finance, and credit cards, and approving application, facial recognition. Then we're going to come back to the US with breast cancer treatment options that are going on in Boston right now. So let me switch over to self-driving cars.
Incredible work ethic. I would say these a few thousand Chinese top entrepreneurs, they could take on any entrepreneur anywhere in the world.
Entrepreneurs like Zhao Shudong, the 33-year-old CEO of a new startup called Momenta. This is a ring road around Beijing. The car is driving itself.
You see another cutting. Yeah.
Zhao has no doubt about the inevitability of autonomous vehicles.
Just like the AlphaGo can beat the human player in Go, I think the machine will definitely surpass the human driver in the end.
Recently, there have been cautions about how soon autonomous vehicles will be deployed. But Zhao and his team are confident they're in for the long haul.
US will be the...
So this video is showing you what some of the Chinese entrepreneurs, 33-year-old, is doing. That company, Momentum, is one of those companies that the Chinese government is actually subsidizing to help them get an edge, and so that China can lead the world in AI, right? Another video here that I'd like to show. I think this is the one. Let's see here.
Life in China is largely conducted on smartphones. 1 billion people use WeChat, the equivalent of Facebook, Messenger, and PayPal, and much more combined into just one super app. And there are many more.
China is the best place for AI implementation today because the vast amount of data that's available in China. China has a lot more users than any other country, 3 to 4 times more than the US. There are 50 times more mobile payments than the US. There are 10 times more food deliveries, which serve as data to learn more about user behavior than the US. 300 times more shared bicycle rides. And each shared bicycle ride has all kinds of sensors submitting data up to the cloud. We're talking about maybe 10 times more data than the US. And AI is basically run on data and fueled by data. The more data, the better the AI works. More importantly than how brilliant the researcher is working on the problem. So in the age of AI, where data is the new oil, China is the new Saudi Arabia.
And access to all that data means that the deep learning algorithm can quickly predict behavior, like the creditworthiness of someone wanting a short-term loan.
Here's is our application, and the customer can choose how many money they want to borrow and how long they want to borrow, and they can input their data here. And after that, you can just borrow very quickly.
The CEO shows us how quickly you can get a loan.
It has done.
It takes an average of 8 seconds.
It has passed 2 banks. Well, yeah, our job is finished.
In the 8 seconds, the algorithm has assessed 5,000 personal features from all your data.
5,000 features. That is related with the delinquency. When maybe the banks only use few, maybe 10 features when they are doing their risk management.
Yeah, so in China, we just looked at that company, they're approving a loan in 8 seconds, right? And it's looking at 5,000 features of a person to try to figure the credit worthiness of the person. Back to China one third time here, looking at facial recognition and how it's being used in China.
Like this facial recognition startup he invested in. Megvii was started by 3 young graduates in 2011. It's now a world leader in using AI to identify people.
It's pretty fast. For example, on the mobile device, we have timed the facial recognition speed. It's actually less than 100 milliseconds. So that's very, very fast. So 0.1 second that we'll be able to recognize you, even on a mobile device.
The company claims the system is better than any human at identifying people in its database. And for those who aren't, it can describe them. Like our director, what he's wearing, and a good guess at his age, missing it by only a few months.
We are the first one to really take facial recognition to commercial quality.
That's why in Beijing today, you can pay for your KFC with a smile.
You know, it's not so surprising. We've seen Chinese companies catching up to the US in technology for a long time. And so if particular effort and attention is paid in a specific sector, it's not so surprising.
So facial recognition in China, again, these are unicorns or billion-dollar companies that are already in existence, right? And then, you know, coming back to the US from China and showing some of the things that we're doing here in the US, I want to look at breast cancer that's being done up in Boston, breast cancer treatments.
Breast cancer. Right now, 40,000 women in the US alone die from breast cancer every single year.
Dr. Connie Lehman is head of the Breast Imaging Center at Massachusetts General Hospital in Boston.
We've become so complacent about it. We almost don't think it can really be changed. We somehow think we should put all of our energy into chemotherapies to save women with metastatic breast cancer. And yet when we find it early, we cure it, and we cure it without having the ravages to the body when we diagnose it late. This shows the progression of a small spot from 1 year to the next, and then to the diagnosis of the small cancer here.
This is what happened when a woman who had been diagnosed with breast cancer started to ask questions about why it couldn't have been diagnosed earlier.
Really brings a lot of anxiety, and you're asking the questions, am I going to survive? What's going to happen to my son? And I started asking other questions.
She was used to asking questions. At MIT's Artificial Intelligence Lab, Professor Regina Barzilay uses deep learning to teach the computer to understand language, as well as read text and data.
I was really surprised at the very basic question that I asked my physicians, which were really excellent physicians here at MGH. They couldn't give me answers that I was looking for.
She was convinced that if you analyze enough data, from mammograms to diagnostic notes, the computer could predict early stage conditions.
If we fast forward from 2012 to 13 to 2014, we then see when Regina was diagnosed because of this spot on her mammogram. Is it possible with more elegant computer applications that we might have identified this spot the year before, or even back here?
So those are standard prediction problems in machine learning. There is nothing special about them. And to my big surprise, none of the technologies that we are developing at MIT, even in the most simple form, doesn't penetrate the hospital.
So that's, again, how AI has been used in medicine. So, we talked about China's plans. We've seen some Chinese entrepreneurs, billion-dollar companies. And what I want to do now is for me to share some things that we did at IBM and other things, and how AI is making a difference in industries like healthcare. So with cancer, let's say glioblastoma type cancer, which is a brain cancer. Right now, personalized treatment is difficult. What's happening a lot is that when someone has cancer, they get chemotherapy. We all know that, right? But with AI, we're able to look at the human genome that's been created, a human being's DNA, and be able to take cancerous tissue and compare that with healthy tissue, and to look at something like 800 billion base pair of DNA. If you look down here at the bottom, this double helix that shows you this DNA structure, this double helix thing. Doctors can use the computer to go and look at the DNA. They can also have the computer search through millions and millions of articles, right? This gets back to what I was talking about earlier with the processing power of the computer. So there, you can pull in lab results, you can pull in all the stuff about DNA, and out comes the computer with a recommendation. Maybe this treatment option is 80%, might address it, maybe 60%, but it gives the doctors information that they can use as experts and make decisions about treatment options, right? There's something like 14 million cancer patients a year. Over half of them, 8.2 million, will not survive in 12 months. They're going to die, right? And it's just too much information for doctors to get down to the personal level of personalized treatment. Side story here is IBM working with Memorial Sloan Kettering in New York, as well as the Human Genome projects in New York City and others. The computer was given information about patients that have been treated by a group of expert doctors in glioblastoma, right? The computer had no idea what they'd come up with, but it recommended the same or similar treatment options that these expert doctors had done. And in many cases, it suggested some things that the doctors hadn't even considered. This is the power of AI and being able to go through all of that data. So this is just one example of industry and health and science. As I look again at innovations in health and science, every year there's about 700 million MRI scans that are done. each MRI has about 10,000 images, right? So imagine each one having 10,000 images. That's a lot of images for a human to look at. But with AI, the computer can look at what has been fractures before, what have been broken bones before, and create a database by which each MRI is searches through this database, looking for patterns, reducing these 10,000 images per MRI down to a set of images that are necessary for these expert humans to look at. It can become an assistant to the humans, right? There's cost savings involved with this. There's benefits in terms of, reducing errors, and the customer gets a higher quality of care, right, by doing this. So there are incredible benefits to using AI in the system. So if we were to move beyond the health industry to looking at finance. So imagine, this morning you went to Starbucks and you bought a coffee and breakfast sandwich or what have you. And then 2 hours later, the same credit card that you use is being used in Beijing, China. So the question is, do you approve that transaction or not, right? Most of us, our intuition will tell us, no, there's no way I can get from wherever I am now. If I'm in New York, I can't get to Beijing, China in 2 hours. So our instinct is to say, nope, we don't want to approve this transaction. It's probably fraudulent, right? So because the computer processes information so fast, it can look to see whether or not this credit card has been used in China before over the last 12 months or the last 5 years or what have you, and make the decision to approve the credit transaction because it has processed through the data and made a decision. The same thing, so it could be that you're a student in the US and your parents are in China and you're authorized to use the card. So the card has been used in both places. It's okay for that transaction to be used like that. I mean, it could be that you're a student in Canada and your parents are in Jamaica, so don't deny my transaction because I'm not right in the same place. So AI can be used to help sift through data and help credit card companies or banks and so forth make better decisions. Another example here would be a winemaking company. So Gallo Wines approached IBM, this technical company, and said, hey, how could you help me with my wine business? So essentially what happens in the wine industry is these vineyards are watered on a timer at the same time every day. So to net this all out, what IBM and Gallo, Ernst and Julio Gallo decided to do was to say, let's take some satellite imagery of the whole vineyard, and then let's try to figure out which parts of this vineyard is driest. In addition to that, let's put these tiny sensors, these Internet of Things devices on the vines where the grapes are. And let's also look at soil sample to try to figure out whether the soil is dry or not. So pulling together NASA satellite imagery, Internet of Things type devices, as well as soil samples, they were able to only water the parts of the vineyard that needed it when it needed to be watered, and they had a better yield on the grapes and improved profits. So far, we've been talking about a lot of the positives when it comes to AI. What I want to draw your attention to now is a couple more short video clips of how AI is affecting jobs. The first little video clip, again, all of these are less than 2 minutes. It's going to talk, you're going to see a 24-year-old CEO who started out in robotics. He's now have a multi-million-dollar company that has self-driving trucks. And the second video is a truck driver who's in the business, been in the business for a long time, doesn't see this transition coming. And it's going to catch him off guard, he and his family. The third thing I want to show you is Saginaw, Michigan, where the automotive industry was once really booming. Now that town is suffering because of robotics and automation. Then finally, I want to talk a little bit about the psychology of what happens when towns and people start losing their jobs to automation. And again, the sources here, PBS, Public Broadcasting System, they do a great job of vetting people. They don't try to pander to any one particular company. So I use that as a judge to say that the information that you're seeing is not in favor of any one particular demographic group. So here we go with the 24-year-old.
On an interstate in the U.S. Southwest, Artificial intelligence is at work solving the problem that's become emblematic of the new age, replacing a human driver. This is the company's CEO, 24-year-old Alex Rodriguez.
The more things we build successfully, the less people ask questions about how old you are when you have working trucks.
This is what he's built. Commercial goods are being driven from California to Arizona on Interstate 10. There is a driver in the cab, but he's not driving. It's a path set by a CEO with an unusual CV.
Are we ready, Henry? We aim is to score these pucks into the scoring area.
So I did competitive robotics starting when I was 11, and I took it very, very seriously. To give you a sense, I won the Robotics World Championships for the first time when I was 13. Been to Worlds 7 times between the ages of 13 and 20-ish. I eventually founded a team.
Sorry about that.
On an interstate.
Sorry, we had a short little clip here.
Ask questions about how old you are when you have working trucks.
This is what he's built. Commercial goods are being driven from California to Arizona on Interstate 10. There is a driver in the cab, but he's not driving. It's a path set by a CEO with an unusual CV.
Are we ready, Henry? The aim is to score these pucks into the scoring area.
So I did competitive robotics starting when I was 11, and I took it very, very seriously. To give you a sense, I won the Robotics World Championships for the first time when I was 13. Been to Worlds 7 times between the ages of 13 and 20-ish. I eventually founded a team.
Okay, so that's A-Rod, or Alex Rodriguez, 24-year-old millionaire who has self-driving trucks. Now, while this is going on, and they're currently in operation today in the state of Arizona, there are truck drivers, and this next short clip is going to show you this truck driver who is broken down. His truck is broken down, and we're going to talk to him and his family, or we're going to see a video for that.
It's in the blood, 3rd generation driver. And my granddaddy told me a long time ago when I was probably 11, 12 years old, probably. He said, the world meets nobody halfway. Nobody. He said, if you want it, you have to earn it. And that's what I do every day. I live by that creed, and I've lived by that since it was told to me.
So if you're down for a week in a truck, you still have to pay your bills. I have enough money in my checking account at all times to pay a month's worth of bills.
So this is the truck driver's wife. She's at home while he's stuck on the road in this tractor trailer.
Not include my food. That doesn't include field trips for my son's school. My son and I just went to our yearly doctor appointment. I took money out of my son's piggy bank to pay for it because it's not scheduled in. It's not something that you can, afford. I mean, like when, sorry.
It's okay.
Have you guys ever talked about self-driving trucks? See.
So kind of. I asked him once, and he laughed so hard. There's no way will they ever have a truck that can drive itself.
It's kind of interesting when you think about it. They're putting all this new technology into things, but, it's still man-made, and man, does make mistakes. I really don't see it being a problem with the industry because, one, you still got to have a driver in it because I don't see it doing city. I don't see it doing, main things. I don't see it backing into a dock. I don't see the automation part, doing maybe the box trailer side, I can see that, but not stuff like I do. So I really ain't worried about the automation trucks.
How near of a future is it?
Yeah, self-driving. So some companies are already operating.
Embark, for instance. It's one that has been doing driverless trucks on the interstate and what's called exit to exit self-driving. And they're currently running real freight.
Really?
Yeah, on I-10.
So she's hearing for the first time that there are self-driving trucks, and her husband is thinking that it's a future thing. Just a point to note. Next, I want to go to Saginaw, Michigan, talking about how this is the challenges of AI. We talked about the great things, right? It's automation, self-driving trucks, and now the automotive industry in Michigan.
Saginaw, Michigan knows about decline in living standards. Harry Cripps, an auto worker and a local union president, has witnessed what 40 years of automation can do to a town.
You know, we're one of the cities in the country that I think we were left behind in this recovery. Just, I don't know how we get on the bandwagon now.
Once this was the UAW hall for one local union. Now, with falling membership, it's shared by 5 locals.
Rudy didn't get the ship.
This day, it's the center for a Christmas food drive. Even in a growth economy, unemployment here is near 6%. Poverty in Saginaw
Steve, you got one more coming.
is over 30%.
Our factory has about 1.9 million square feet. Back in the 70s, that 1.9 million square feet had about 7,500 UAW automotive workers making middle-class wage with decent benefits and able to send their kids to college and do all the things that the middle-class families should be able to do. Our factory today, with automation, they would probably be about 700 United Auto Workers. That's a dramatic change. A lot of union brothers used to work there, buddy.
Yep, TRW plant. That was unfortunate.
Delphi, that looks like they're starting to tear it down now. Wow. Automation is definitely taking away a lot of jobs. Robots, I don't know how they buy cars. I don't know how they buy sandwiches. I don't know how they go to the grocery store. They definitely don't pay taxes with search the infrastructure. So you don't have the sheriffs and the police and the firemen and anybody else that supports the city is gone because there's no tax base. Robots don't pay taxes.
The average personal income in Saginaw is $16,000 a year.
A lot of the families that I work with here in the community, both parents are working. They're working 2 jobs. Mainly it's the wages, you know, people not making a decent wage to be able to support a family. Like back in the day, my dad even worked at the plant. My mom stayed home, raised the children. And that give us opportunity to put food on the table and things of that nature. And them times are gone.
If you look at this graph of what's been happening to America since the end of World War II, you see a line for our productivity, and our productivity gets better over time. It used to be the case that our pay, our income would increase in lockstep with those productivity increases. The weird part about this graph is how the income has decoupled, is not going up the same way that that productivity is anymore.
Yeah, so you see that these machines and robots are not paying taxes, and that has an implication on the economy. We're almost near the end here. I just want to play one last little video clip. It talks about the effect that losing jobs have on the human, right?
We actually know that people are at greater risk of mortality for over 20 years after they lose their job due to no fault of their own. So something like automation or offshoring. They're at higher risk for cardiovascular disease. They're at higher risk for depression and suicide. But then with the intergenerational impacts, we also see their children are more likely, children of parents who have lost their job due to automation are more likely to repeat a grade. They're more likely to drop out of school. They're more likely to be suspended from school, and they have lower educational attainment over their entire lifetimes.
It's the future of this, not the past, that scares me, because I think we're in the early decades of what is a multi-decade adjustment period.
The world is being reimagined. This is a supermarket. Robots guided by AI pack everything from soap powder to cantaloupes for online consumers. Machines that pick groceries, machines that can also read reports, learn routines, and comprehend, are reaching deep into factories, stores, and offices. At a college in Goshen, Indiana, a group of local business and political leaders come together to try to understand the impact of AI and the new machines. Molly Kinder studies the future of work at a Washington think tank.
How many people have gone into a fast food restaurant and done a self-ordering? Anyone? Yes? Panera, for instance, is doing this. Cashier was my first job. And in where I live in Washington, D.C., it's actually the #1 occupation for the greater D.C. region.
Okay, so that video clip gets us to, we've looked at the positives of AI, now we've looked at some of the challenges of AI, and you can see that automation, robotics, and so forth and so on, they're really having a big effect on our environment. So we need to learn new skills, even when it comes to jobs like cashiers, right? I want to run through a couple of slides in terms of investing in the future, where companies are putting their money, right? So according to Forbes magazine, 49% of the people see that AI, 49% and 28%, roughly 76% of organizations are saying AI and artificial intelligence and machine learning is a high priority for them. This is sort of older data, but from this year to next year, we can see, according to another Forbes indicator here, that since 2020, there's been a compound annual growth rate of 20 to 43%, right? So from the next year, we can see hardware for AI is going to go from 9 billion to 14 billion. 7 to 11 billion for software, and 3 to 5. This graph shows that. So this is showing you that there continue to be investments in AI. Some of the things that we talked about before, chatbots, where we're seeing the growth happen, dealing with chatbots, dealing with these fraud detections that we talked about before, self-driving cars, and some of the things or the applications that are as an outgrowth of using AI, companies, 38% of them are seeing reducing their costs, right? 37% of them see improvements with customer service, or getting insight or intelligence about what customers want and what they're doing. These bigger numbers, these bigger bubbles kind of tell you where the biggest insight is coming from. So, and then finally here, when it comes to the jobs or the impact on jobs, off to your right here is jobs that are most likely to be impacted or go away from AI. The red here indicates if it's an index of 0.78 or higher, it has the higher probability of being impacted. And you can see over here, with 0.73 and higher, we have management analysts, personal financial advisors, computer programmers, sales managers, so forth and so on. This is just the Brookings Institute view. Right. And now we're going to pivot and move on. I only got maybe 2 slides left. We're going to talk about regulating AI right now. So the point here is no one government can call all the shots. So the US could put in regulations, but worldwide, other countries don't have to agree to what the US does. Some examples of that, cloning. Some of you may remember cloning technology. Dolly the sheep was cloned in 1996 by 2 UK colleagues. In China in 2018, we had 3 scientists that basically used this gene editing technology called CRISPR-Cas9. They took, using in vitro fertilization, they took an HIV positive male, the sperm from that male, fertilized an egg with an HIV negative woman, and there were 3 embryos that were created from that. Luckily, the children that were born were all resistant to HIV because they had removed this CCR5 gene from their DNA, right? And so all 3 of these scientists were considered using unethical conduct, and they were sent to jail and found guilty in prison. Now, so that begs the question, where do we draw the line when it comes to privacy and ethics? Does China have the right to monitor citizens 24/7 a day, like they're doing with the Uyghurs, who are, you know, at least 1 million of them are put in prison or containment camps? Rules around personal identity. Is it okay to impersonate someone else because we have the ability to do so through the computer? How about robot cops, right? Robots killing or shooting humans. Is that okay? How about designer babies, right? So the really wealthy, because we can edit DNA, is it okay for them to say, hey, I want blonde, blue-eye child with the intelligence of Einstein because they can afford to pay for it, or any other variation on that, you know? So there are ethical issues there. And when it comes to hiring, you know, companies shouldn't be able to use data and AI to sift through candidates, and someone is predisposed to Alzheimer's or Parkinson's to not hire them. So these regulations are complex is the point here, and that they're worldwide. And no matter what the US says, you know, the world is out there experimenting. And the World Health Organization, when it came to this HIV experiment in China, they condemned heavily China for their scientists doing what they did. And then I think the last chart here is, what do we do next? Where do we go from here? I would say we need to continue to follow these developments of AI, like the development that's going on at Harvard and MIT. They partnered to identify antibiotics faster when it comes to clinical trials and testing. Some experiments have bypassed using mice first and going straight to humans. There's augmented reality, virtual reality. We should all follow these things. And as adults, as experts in whatever field that we're in, we should use our expertise or discipline knowledge to sort of influence this technology in the areas in which we are experts or have lots of knowledge, right? So we could teach courses. And then, you know, if we do this, if we participate in this AI evolution, then we're going to give humans the best chance of remaining the most intelligent species in our environment. And that is all I have to say in terms of the charts. I will open it up to questions now.
Okay, thank you so much. Wow, what a lot of great information. You can raise your hand if you have a question, or you can put it in the chat. But one thing that I just personally got from this is how the rich can potentially get richer and the poor can really get poorer as people who own business make decisions about what do they use and who do they use to create wealth. You know, I can really see that. And that's why it's important, I think, even for us to be a part of creating businesses through creating and having the understanding and not just kind of looking on and, you know, in fear or anything. That really has come home to me with even your presentation, Dr. Porter.
Thanks, Ruth, for the comment.
Any questions from anyone on the line?
Okay, I think my hand was up. No, so I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Very wonderful, interesting presentation, Dr. Porter. Just wanted to check if you have any comments on the accountability and responsibility. Is there a level of, should we expect any responsibility for preparing maybe the workforce, those persons who are increasing the use of AI and, you know, developing artificial intelligence and all of this? Could we ask that they also be responsible in preparing us? And what's the level of preparation that's going on? I know IBS is doing something here, but those persons who are really developing this technology and seeing even the impact on jobs, what's the balance?
Sure. And I forgive me for not recognizing.
This is Loy. Oh, I see. My name isn't up there. It's Loy. Yes.
Okay, no problem, Loy. I think there's a huge gap in sort of knowledge about how responsible people should be. So people who are developing IT technology around AI now, in my opinion, a lot of companies are just trying to get to market first and so profit is the motive first in a lot of cases, right? And so I don't think there's a lot of consideration as to when it comes to the workforce, how some of these things could how there could be discrimination if you use facial recognition, for example, to try to identify people, and whether that's bias in hiring decisions or looking through other pieces of information about people. But I think there's a huge responsibility when it comes to AI. I think some of the things that stopped a lot of it from I think it's caught us off guard to some extent because technology, AI hits so many different areas until people didn't see it coming until this Chat GPT has sort of surfaced and people see the power of it right now. And when you hear people talking about AI destroying us, right, it's because if these neurons or these artificial neurons take over, it gets to the point where you have trillions of artificial neurons and the computer has gained awareness and it's duplicating itself like a virus across the world. Nobody's probably thinking, well, some people are thinking about it. They call that the singularity, but people aren't really thinking about how what they develop can just take off. And before you know it, go viral, so to speak. And
yeah, because Dr. Porter, when you look at China is subsidizing all these companies, and it would really give me the impression they're just doing it to be the first to pass out the USA to what's that type of drive. It really hasn't even come to consider what it's doing to their peoples. And so really there needs to be an arm to create some balance in all of this.
oh yeah, and China is, because it's so well developed technically, if you listen to the news, you'll see that they're using AI technology to monitor this minority group, these ethnic Uyghurs who are Turkish Muslims, and they are watching every move that they make 24/7. For some of the ones who look like they may be troublemakers, they're taking them and putting them in these camps, they call them re-education camps. So and China, I don't want to sound like I'm hating on China, but they're using this surveillance technology to go to other dictatorship type places. Some places in Africa, they're giving their technology to leaders so that they can also do surveillance on their people and keep the noisemakers down. And so that's an ethical issue. It's a human rights issue. And I don't think a lot of people are really looking at that. And before you know it, China's going to have their technology in lots of places, and they could possibly have backdoors into places like that. It's just thinking out loud.
Yeah. Just very quickly, because
sorry,
this might,
no,
yes.
can we get a question from Annalise and then we can come back to you? So we can just
certainly.
Okay, Annalise, can you go ahead, please, and ask a question?
Hi, I joined a little bit late, but I have just wanted to know if there's any national regulatory body for AI, or will it be each country will have to regulate it, the developments on their own?
Well, they're working on it, but like the World Health Organization, their groups, when it comes to like this cloning and things like that, and what was going on with the HIV experiment in China, the World Health Organization, they set guidelines and ethical standards. But in terms of editing your DNA, all these groups can do is give guidelines, right? But they can't really stop you from doing it. So right now, using the Cas9 technology, for example, if someone wants to, and this is the good part, right? If you know that Alzheimer's runs in your family, when in the very initial stages of the development of the baby, you can use your DNA and go in there and turn off that gene that causes Alzheimer's, so that your children, once they're born, don't have that gene turned on. They would be resistant to that. Now that's good. You can do that for other diseases, but you can also use it for bad. And people aren't looking at that aspect of it. At least there's no central government body in the U.S. that can prevent experiments from going on in the UK or China or anywhere else in the world once they have the technology.
Dr. McMillan.
Oh, thank you very much, Professor Joe. I just wanted to say I'm using AI, and I've seen the tremendous power of it in terms of research and so on. So it's an incredible technology. I guess my fascination was the origins of it, and I think even the guys who created it, I think they accidentally stumbled into the technology. And I tend to look at it like a seed. So the AI seed that started has now grown into a little tree, but in another 10 years, this will be like the size of the Amazon forest. This is huge in terms of the impact it's going to have across the world, probably 10 to 100 times more powerful than the internet. So there's no way to stop it. So we have to embrace it and look at it as an opportunity for, I guess, mankind to shift its direction to using much more of the brain than they have done before. AI is only a threat, in my view, if we stay functioning at the level that we are. If we were supposed to use the potential that God has given us, AI will become a tool. That's just my thought.
Yeah, that's an incredible insight, and I agree with you. As far as the origins of this, the computers are becoming more and more powerful, and that's allowing more and more applications to be done. Like the human genome, the sequencing of that in the medical field, that was done relatively recent, right? And these computers are able to look at 800 billion base pair of DNA. That kind of processing the data is tremendous. Now there's something called quantum computing, which is going to put the current way of computing that we know on steroids, right? It's going to take it to a whole new level. And these chips that are being developed by NVIDIA, if some of you follow stocks, NVIDIA stock for graphic recognition and things like that they've gone up. Their valuations over the last month have gone up by billions of dollars. So, but the origins when it comes to medicine, I think they started with a lot of the human genome mapping. I think they started pulling together, like the lab results and looking at how can I make the technology better. So if I want to take an MRI machine into a third world type country, I hate to describe it that way, but you can minimize the need for doctors by having the computer be able to look through every MRI having 10,000 images. When I go abroad, instead of having multiple doctors, I can use that technology to help with identifying fractures or breaks or things like that. But it depends on which industry you're in. That may vary on the origin of it. But I think in general, just the ability of the computer to see, which it can do now, and that's been relatively recent, and using GPS. And now with these self-driving cars, you can use GPS, you can see the lanes in the roads, and all of these things are just the beginning. But I agree with you, which is why I say we should take our discipline and instead of letting the computer tell us what's coming next, get involved and make it happen ourselves.
So we have two more questions. I know we are at time. I'm going to extend our time by about 10 minutes because I realize this is a very it's a very complex topic, but it's also a very relevant topic. So Sonia.
Yes, I agree with what Dr. McMillan was saying, that since there's no turning back, we really have to embrace it and get ahead of it. And I just saw a news article where when a lot of these people who are developing, even the person you gave us the clip of in the beginning in China, they are educated here in America, but America has a thing with immigrants and sends them either back to China, to India, to Canada, and we don't keep the brains that we want, and the younger generation here is all focused on being famous and doing, you know, it used to be that we wanted to be doctors and lawyers and computer scientists, but now that doesn't seem to be the goal of the young American teens. And it's so my question is, how can we turn this around to make the younger generation value all these, and even the politicians and whatever, begin to value education and value this intelligence so that we keep it instead of sending it off, you know, sending it off to other countries and to our rivals like China and other places.
Sure. Well, I think there's some policy issues around intellectual property when it comes to China. So I think the government are doing some things to prevent places like China from cloning or stealing technology that may help on the home front. I think we, and using our knowledge of our disciplines, if we are able to embrace the technology, as Dr. McMillan was saying, and not fear it, but just take it on, because we are smarter in the technology at the moment. And before we let it get away from us, we can just guide it. And then a third thing would be within our, whether it's K through 12 or college level education, we can talk about these things. I teach business analytics, and I make sure the students know what's going on. I show them some subset of the clips that I've shown you guys about self-driving, and I talk to them about, you know, things that are just pie in the sky right now, right? Which is, at some point we may not need a driver's license. You can just tell your car, go pick up your daughter at the airport and then take someone else to their appointment. Now, when we get there, I don't know, but we need to start thinking about those kinds of things and sharing the information with our loved ones, with our friends, with our family, and praying about it too, right?
Yes, yes. I was just thinking in terms of interceding for the youth.
Yeah.
You know, that they become interested instead of in the right things and not the wrong things. Thank you. Very interesting. Thank you.
Reverend Andrew Bennett.
Yes. Good afternoon. How are you? Thank you so much for that presentation, my brother. I think I'm so grateful that, you know, this was presented. My concern has to do with the theology of all of this. The fear that surrounds AI for me seem to now be just around commerce and education and, you know, business. My question now, health, my question now is, how would this affect the church? Whether positive or negative, and in responding to this kind of technology, how can we get ahead of the game as a church? I would imagine that it will have implications for biblical research, implications for how we do church, implications for how we communicate in terms of relating to members and so on. You know, what do you foresee are the opportunities and challenges relevant to the theological community and the church community?
Sure. Thanks for the question, Reverend Bennett. Funny you should say that. I think within the last week or so, I saw something on TV that kind of got my attention. It talked about AI rewriting the Bible to make it more correct. And I said, what? I can't believe this, you know? So for people like yourself who are leaders in the church, I would say, you know, keep an eye on this thing and don't let the Bible be rewritten by the computer. You know, I know Pastor Brian has been sharing some things with us about, you know, God and his covenants. And, you know, I think people like yourself, Pastor Brian, need to make sure that whatever rewrites that take place to be more politically correct or more correct, as they want to call it, to make sure that it is really grounded on, you know, biblical origins, and that it's not made up and we don't have this fake stuff that's going on, right? And to educate your followers to make sure that they have the spirit of discernment, right? To be able to see and when they hear stuff that doesn't align itself with the word that they know, they have someone like you that can come to and be able to point out to you where they're deviating from what biblical scripture says in its origin. That would be my thinking on it.
And
Okay.
I do want to inject that I really use ChatGPT quite a bit for even analyzing some of the scriptures, and I find it extremely fascinating how much the wealth of information that ChatGPT has. You know, so I agree that definitely the way that we study and even the way that we assess things, I mean, you know, we definitely want to pay attention because things are definitely changing. So we have two last questions. I do want to close off because I do know I have to respect people's time. Just gonna go quickly and then I'll let Lloyd. And I think, Dorothy, did you have your hand up?
No.
Yes, I did. But I had, because I was thinking of time, so I took it back down. But yes, I did.
Okay, Annalise, quickly. Did you have your hand up still? Okay.
Yes, I just had a quick question. Since AI is, it's like robotics, right? You know, on certain websites, they will, for protective measures, they'll have you pick different squares with, say, like a motorcycle in there, and then confirm that this is not a robot. Would AI be able to bypass those certain security measures if it does have the potential to make people be able to mimic you and pretend that they are you on the computer? Like,
Yeah, well, I think what you're talking about is this area called authentication, trying to verify who's you. In addition to you selecting the boxes, there's some stuff
right.
that you can do with what they call biometrics now, like your thumbprint or your retina. You can look at things that are uniquely yours, your DNA type stuff, or things that your body has that other people can't easily duplicate, like your fingerprint or your eyes, right? And some people are using that now to unlock their phones. And so when you go to a website application, some vendors may actually, instead of having you pick squares, they may ask you to use your thumbprint or your eyes or what have you to get in, and to not just use one way of getting in, but to use multiple way, like they call it multi-factor authentication. So even if you can get in using these squares, they may ask you also, they may send a text to you, put in this number, but more than one thing by itself. Does that help?
Yeah. Could I just segue then, since Annalise asked about the biometrics? Dr. Porter, this is Dorothy Aarons. So you're just mentioning biometrics, and I just wanted to say, you know, being in the insurance industry, the insurance industry has had to make certain decisions to reduce their risk. And what's happening now in terms of biometrics is that they are actually excluding coverage in certain policies for biometrics because of what AI has exposed. And I also wanted to mention that a lot of hackers are using ChatGPT to actually create the programs for the hacking. So you were mentioning, you know, what are the pros and cons? And this is definitely a negative, you know, there are definitely a lot of positives, but it is definitely being used by bad actors to be destructive.
Oh yeah, definitely, Dorothy, especially in insurance, if they start denying coverage because you may have some genetic markers that may make you a higher risk.
That's right.
That could be a concern. But and then ChatGPT, yeah, there's always going to be bad actors, and I think the good actors need to make sure they stay aware of what the bad actors are doing and just try to stay one step ahead, right? And you know, when it comes to quantum computing, the computers are so fast that there's no encryption or no coding that you can use that prevent it from hacking it, because it is just fast when it comes to quantum. So as we get into newer and newer technologies, we need to find newer and newer safeguards to protect us.
Okay.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much. What I'm going to do, I know Loy and Charlene, you had questions. Because I'm gonna, yeah, I want to just formally thank Dr. Porter before everybody leaves. And then I'll just leave, whoever wants to stay behind and ask additional questions. I see that this is a very important topic. And what I'm going to also do is, definitely this is something that the Lord has laid on my heart. And I know for IBS, we need to be empowered. We cannot just sit back and think it's okay for everybody else to know. You talk about how do we, what impact do we make? This is how we educate. And I thank persons for staying behind and listening, and for Dr. Porter to, for taking all this time. I'm going to ask David just to thank him on our behalf, David Evans. And
yes, thank
and then, just probably even just a short prayer, just to, as we move forward, even as a group, how we can be more effective within this area. Go ahead, David.
Ruth, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Ruth. Dr. Porter, thank you so much. I was really struck by your comment that you made about China playing to win. It's not just China. The nations want to win. Google, Apple, Microsoft, all the corporations are playing to win. This is in direct contrast with what Jesus said in John 16:33. He said, I've told you these things that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. So Jesus has won, but Jesus's victory is being contested. And when people start losing their jobs, like in Saginaw, Michigan, and corporations and leaders are playing to win, war is inevitable. That's spiritual warfare and other kinds of war as well. So it's imperative that IBS be able to contribute something to the dialogue on ethics, that's small language models and large language models, generative, pre-trained transformers, regression analysis, neural networks, all the things he told us about. These technologies are being led by leaders who have a form of godliness, but they deny the power thereof. So we, with IBS, have something to contribute that they cannot. The Word of God and Holy Spirit discernment. So this knowledge is really essential. Dr. Porter, you said many things. One of the things that struck me as well was when you said that profit is the first motive. In Matthew, or rather Mark, I think it was chapter 8, verse 36 and 37, Jesus said, what does it profit a man if he shall gain the world, the whole world, and lose his own soul? Or what shall a man give in exchange for his soul? So it's a business of IBS to be able to speak authoritatively at the intersection as AI competes with the kingdom for souls. So Dr. Porter, on behalf of IBS, would like to thank you once again. Thank you for your deeply insightful presentation on AI, what artificial intelligence is all about, and why we should care. Your presentation has helped to give IBS the power to get ahead of artificial intelligence technology, embrace artificial intelligence technology, and glorify God with this technology. So thank you so much, Dr. Porter.
Thanks for listening, David, and I appreciate the insight. It sounds like there's a lot of very intelligent people on the call, so I appreciate the thinking and the insights and even the scripture that you shared with us.
And I know I'm going to leave the line open for us to get started. I just want to kind of just let everyone know we do have, as mentioned, IBS is a ministry. So tomorrow on the 2nd, 4th, and the 5th Sunday, we have a Bible study, and we will continue. We'll do a final study on covenant, and Pastor Brian, who's been doing a great job, he will be completing that study. We will have the recording on our IBS website. I put it in the chat for anyone who wants to look at it, and really give God thanks for all of us here, and really give God thanks that you could, take time and you can learn. And I believe that everyone here is for a purpose. There is a purpose in this time of you coming and sitting. There is a purpose in Dr. Porter joining us and really bringing this information to us. A lot has been poured into him, in terms of his knowledge, and he's gone in to get his, he has his doctorate even in this whole area, and he has done it such a great job in expounding this to us. And we'll have some more sessions as we go along. We know we've had sessions on medical items, issues. We now have added on technical issues, technology items, or empowerment sessions. So if you want to get be a part of our empowerment sessions, put your name in the chat, in your email in the chat, or your number, so we can get in touch with you and let you know when the next session will be. Thank you so much, everyone. And we'll leave the line open. And I know that Charlene, you had a question, and persons who need to leave have the freedom to do so.
Hey, Dr. Porter, I want to say thank you so much for this presentation. It was rather enlightening. And when you said MSK, I waved my hands because that's where I work.
All right.
Yep. So it was awesome to hear that. And I, just based on some of the presentations that they filter out to us at work, I do see AI helping a lot of our cancer patients there. But what I wanted to do was just encourage you and Pastor Bennett and Pastor Brian. One of the things the scripture says, when Jesus was doing the Sermon on the Mount, he kept saying, this is what everybody says, but this is what I say. All I can tell you, pastors, is just keep telling the truth. That's it. Just keep telling us the truth. Keep giving God's truth to us. And it will mold, and it will fashion, and it will help, and it will guide, and it will direct, just like what the Holy Spirit is supposed to do, into all truth. That we cannot be afraid of. Just keep telling the truth. Just keep speaking the truth to us. Keep telling us what God's word says. And we, with the help of the Holy Spirit, will be able to navigate this whole explosion of artificial intelligence, how we treat people, how we take people, how we fire people, how we hire people. It will guide us. So I don't believe the church has to fear. I just think the church has to just lean into the Holy Ghost and let him guide us, which is his job. That's his job. And he has the greatest artificial intelligence. He can guide us into where we need to end up. And that's all we need our pastors to do. That was it.
Thank you, Shirley. And thanks for all the great work you're doing for Sloan Catering, sir.
Yeah, if I might respond to our dear sister, and to say, add something to my comment. The concern for me, most of all, is really along the lines of how do we use the available technology to advance the kingdom. One of the things we must note about the way the gospel is written and the call that Jesus has on our lives is that it is not anchored to any epoch. I think Youth for Christ got it correctly when it says anchored to the rock, which is Jesus, but geared to the times. And the times have shifted. Yeah. Notice I say have shifted and not are shifting. Have shifted. And the church needs to come apace. For the church to come apace, we need brothers and sisters who are trained and equipped in various areas such as AI to help the church to make the necessary jumps, to stay apace and even get ahead of the game, to proact rather than to react. A lot of times churches react, oh my God, this is the devil.
Yeah.
And not everything is the devil. And I think we have to, as pastors and theological educators, I see my brother Michael, Professor Michael Watkins on the call. We have to get ahead of the game as theological educators to ensure that we prepare to use tools of this nature to equip our theological students and to build the church, proclaim the gospel, disciple individuals globally, among other things. So I'm not sure if Dr. Porter is so inclined in terms of his own spiritual journey to be a help to us in the community of faith, to say, okay, pastors, here is where you can use this to do discipleship or evangelism.
Yes. Yeah.
Here is how you can, get students to use this to grow theologically as training. So Michael and I, we serve at, have served at Pillar College, where we have a tremendous amount of online students. How does this help us to disseminate theological education, for instance?
Wow, that's really interesting. So definitely, we can have that dialogue. Really thank you a lot for sharing, and we'll get in touch with you, Reverend Andrew Bennett, because that's our work. That's a role we have here. Why we have IBS. It was called out for a time such as this, not to as a part of our ministry. So, did you want to say something, Dr. Porter?
Well, Pastor Bennett, that's great insight. I mean, I'm more than willing to help however I can. One thing I've thought about as I think about my own faith, when I've read the Bible, for example, like with this virtual reality and augmented reality AI, we often hear how Jesus asked Peter to come to him and get out of the boat, right? Having some sort of simulation to show, to actually put you in that scene to further deepen your faith. But things like that and other things in the Bible to drive the Bible stories home, in my opinion, it would be, excellent for you to try to experience what it was like for some of the early believers to sort of embrace Christianity. And that's just me thinking out loud, but I mean, I certainly can see technology helping that way.
Wow.
Awesome.
Lloyd, did you have a final question?
So just very quickly, I think a great job was done. Even in your charts, you said, okay, it's busy. So when you started saying that, it really helped us just to, take our time, understand the charts. So I think I love how you did that. Also that point, data is the new oil. And I think you said China is the new Saudi Arabia. Wow, what's happening there? Just quickly though, MRI and 10,000 images. And so this could speed up just the results from the doctors. And would you see now the costs going down, or generally would like an MRI examination, and we're looking at medical and helping in machines with even hospitals, say even in Jamaica and wherever. How is this going to help us?
I think you're exactly right. I think the cost will go down and the quality will go up, right? Instead of having eye fatigue looking at 10,000 images, you just have the computer just create that subset that the doctor needs to look at, right? So in theory, it should reduce the time, which should correlate with reduced cost. And because of the reduced images that you're looking at, that should help with quality as well, right?
Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate it. God bless you.
God bless you too.
Okay. I think I was okay. The IBS link is in the chat. So I think it's so chat. So thank you everyone, and have one person just joining. Thank you everyone, and we'll the recording for this will be on our website, the IBS website. So and we'll let you know once we have additional information. When our next session, when our next empowerment session will be on. Thanks again, Dr. Porter.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Thanks, Ruth. Great job, team. Very good.